Welcome back to the One Line Away podcast. I'm your co-host, Tyler Weber.
And this is Cassie Weber. And in this episode, we're going to be discussing the concept of time when you're going through infertility. Before we get into this week's topic, we wanted to continue to ask for your support in promoting in any way that you can our podcast, whether that's a share of a post or a sneak peek of a reel that we do for an upcoming episode. However you can, we appreciate it so much. Just in these past few episodes, the things that we have accomplished internally have been really awesome. Not just for us two in the conversations that we get to have, but also the people that have reached out to us or followed up with us, or basically it feels like they're acting on our episodes. And it's been really beautiful to see that happening.
So with that being said, time has been one of the harshest realities that we have faced going through infertility.
Yeah, definitely. I think as a big PSA, if anyone needs to hear this, whether going through infertility or their fertility journey, or know someone or is listening who knows that we're going through this, this is the main PSA of the whole entire episode: is time does matter. If you feel like there's a little bit of sass in my tone today, it's because it's something that's been very triggering in our current walk right now, is the topic of time. And that's what's so cool about this podcast, is we feel like we're able to do episodes in current day and current feelings. And the big feeling for me lately has been this. And I am so sick of someone asking, "How old are you?" "Oh, you have so much time. You just need to relax. Like, you have all the time in the world. You just need to enjoy your 20s. And I immediately I want to stop that whole norm of people out there thinking that it's their place to tell someone what to do with their timeline of their life. I am so sick of it. And it's hurtful. It's cruel.
Yeah, with me being 30, it's definitely, especially on this last birthday, it has been, I think, the toughest for me. Thinking that when we started this 3.5 years ago, I 100% thought we would have kids by now, especially with how on the very first time that we were trying to have kids, we got pregnant. So especially then, which I would have been, probably 27 at that moment. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll definitely have kids in the next 3 years. And then now with my 30th birthday last year, it's like, whoa, it's a little bit of a awakening thing, right? It's you look at it and you see people just try on their first time and you're like, man, that was almost us. But here we are, 3.5 years later, still having this conversation. And I mean, as grateful as I am for this podcast, it's still a terrible thing to be having. So
something that I just can't shake is the time that I feel like has been stolen from us. And though I think that someday I have to hope that this timeline that we've been walking will not necessarily make sense, because I don't think it will ever make sense to me. I hope that there's a reason bigger, like this podcast, that it makes it feel bearable. But all in all, I think that there is a clock that starts ticking when you decide to grow your family, and that time can either be with you or against you. And time is against us.
When you say that the time is ticking, it sounds very negative. And at this moment, when you're 3.5 years in, or if you're 6 years in or 10 years in, then yeah, it is negative. But when you're starting, you don't even think about the time.
No.
I remember when you first told me we were pregnant, you never think like, oh, time's against us. You're like, well, the time of I got a baby coming in 9 months is against me, right? Until you get into this dark cloud, then you're like, oh yeah, now time's against us, Mm-hmm. So when you say it that way, like, oh, time's ticking, you're like, yeah, but until you realize, or I guess even after our ectopic pregnancy, I didn't even think that time was ticking.
This long?
No, because after we had the ectopic, they were even saying, well, it's going to just wait a couple months and wait till you get your period back. on a regular basis, and then you should be good, right? Isn't that what they said?
Well, they just said you're going to be most fertile immediately after this, so you should have really good luck as soon as you get your cycle
Exactly.
back.
So
Yeah.
even in my mind at that point, right, with you had a fallopian tube that was taken out, and you almost, I don't want to say it, but I never even thought time was against us then. I think I realized time was against us once the natural way got taken out of my mind first. The natural way of conceiving got taken out of my, like,
ripped away from you.
yeah, kind of ripped away. I think the Band-Aid got ripped off, and that's when I realized, oh,
Yeah. Well, and I find it interesting that some people know that they're going into, like, some people might have like a certain diagnosis, like maybe they know they've had endometriosis, or maybe they know that they're 40, and that really is when it feels like on a medical standpoint they start making you fear that journey that you want to get on, if whether it's too early or too late. But I think that there's this thing called an infertility clock, and that this clock that we're in feels, yeah, I can't help but say it just feels like it's against us. And maybe if we weren't in the world, time wouldn't be so like the
scary.
yeah.
Well, especially after once we started the IVF process and all that, that's when it really felt like the grand clock, when every second you could hear it tick, right?
Yeah.
But even, yeah, like I went into earlier, the ectopic, or even after like a couple miscarriages that we had during that process, there was never like this, oh, it's not never going to happen moment. I think the never going to happen and the huge grand clock for me was after the last like IVF attempts that failed.
I think what I hate the most about this is the window of time, that window of time that you're supposed to be having babies. I feel like that's that part where it feels like time is against me the most. Is there's a very specific window in society that tells us when we're supposed to be having kids, from it feels like from 20 to 30. And then you hit past that hump where it makes me also, side note, feel so terrible for the people that have met their significant others later in their life, and started later with their whole chapter of life, with maybe they started having kids when they're in their early 40s. Like, I feel so terrible seeing that as that being their own journey to walk through. But for me, it feels like I struggled in trusting that we will have, like, I think it's all based on my fear that we won't get to be parents, or my fear that we don't know how we'll be able to afford the next transfer, or how we'll be able to afford to adopt. I think that goes a lot with that window of time. It all goes for me with the emotion of being so scared that it won't happen for us. And I don't want to miss out on the life that we could be living while being stuck in this part of our journey.
Yeah, and it's all about your siblings and having cousins with them too. Like,
Yeah.
that was one of the things at first when this all started, and we realized that clock was ticking. That was what hurt the most for me, right? And it's not being able to have like them be with their cousins and being able to grow up. Like, what if we do have it in 5 years? Then
Lucy's 10.
Yeah, Lucy, like 10 and 8. Like, it's like around there. That's what I think hurts.
Yeah.
But for me, like, I pushed it out of my mind. I have, and it's not like it's nothing against anyone. It's just like I pushed it out of my mind. I'm more focused on me and us just having a baby eventually, versus I need to have it right now.
I think we already tried. Like, we already did the 100% in speed demon as fast as you could to get to the finish line, and we got to the finish line, and it wasn't what we thought it would look like. And again, maybe it's just that white flag. Maybe it's the white flag was raised, and now we're in a better, I feel like we're both in, like, this is a very good thing. I think that people will hear is how we are right now in a different stage with our struggles with this topic, and it shows that healing does look different on both sides. And yeah, I think it's good that they're hearing this perspective of something that I really struggle with deep rootedly, and you being someone that, you know, you're able to lift me up and like be that strength and that fear that I have right now.
I don't even think it's healing either. I wouldn't say I've 100% healed on that.
No,
I would say it's more like I've just accepted it. Like there's our end goal is what?
To have a family.
To have a family,
yeah.
Right? And there's nothing I can do with time. There's nothing that can make me, because trust me, if I could just be like, hey, I want a freaking kid right now.
Yeah, we've been saying that.
I would have had that 3.5 years ago. But
yeah,
I wouldn't even say I've healed, because there's still days, right? Like when just seeing like stuff that we see online with our family, there's moments where I'm just like, that sucks.
Yeah. I think something that would really help me in this part of our walk of, or in this topic surrounding us, and maybe people listening to this, maybe this is something that will really resonate with you. But I think what's been most hurtful and what hurts me, like as of right now, like in the past few weeks, few months, has been when people tell me, oh, you have time, you're only 28. Like, girl, you need to be just like, you're fine. Oh my gosh. Like, to me, when you say it in that tone, or if it comes across like that to me, it feels like it disregards everything that we've been through in these past few years.
A majority of the time, they don't know what we've been through, though.
Yeah,
even if they do, they're not taking into consideration anything, right? Yeah. It's not like we've just been at home trying.
I just think like any moment of time in these past almost 4 years, it's so hurtful when I feel like someone's disregarding that time. I feel like those are very important years of our lives, that when people go, oh, like, you've been, 3 years, that's nothing. That is cruel.
That's fighting words.
Even if people don't know what we've been through, of course this discussion's being talked to when you're generally discussing what you've been through, whether it's, the surface level, or if it's deep root, like when you're deeply going through every emotion or every detail. I think that when that's said, that's where I feel like I am drowning in every terrible emotion that this infertility battle can be and look like. I just want to scream it to everyone that could hear this of, just please, we are so fragile. And when I say we, I'm saying the people that are in the infertility world, we are so fragile when it comes to some of these topics. And it's so important to take sensitivity to, especially this topic of time. This topic is so vicious.
Well, the only reason they make comments like that is because they got pregnant in 2 months. Like, oh, we want to try. Boom, baby.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, oh, if it was easy for me, it's easy for you.
Yeah.
And that's literally I can guarantee you that's the only reason. They're like, well, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, you'll be fine. And then you tell them, oh, 3.5 years. Oh, 3.5 years is nothing. Well, it's like.
It's so, yeah. There's people that I've talked to in like since our podcast, I've been able to have like hands-on conversations with people in the flesh, not just over like Instagram or Facebook, or text messages. But some of the conversations that I've had with people that have somewhat felt similar to me, or have walked certain walks in this world of infertility, what I've gotten the most, or what I'm recognizing, is the way that they say things to me, the way that they verbalize certain feelings or emotions towards me on certain discussions we're having.
And this is people that have gone through what we're going through?
And I feel like when I'm talking with someone that has gone through it, I feel so much more safe to divulge more information because I know that, like, it's almost like you're like speed dating, right? Like you're like scoping out how deep their journey went so you know what green light you have or don't have. And with this whole topic of time, recently, some of like there was one particular conversation I had with someone who they've grown their family, they've walked some really terrible things in their journey when they were raising or trying to grow their family, and I what's resonating with me is when I spoke a little bit about this time topic of just like being so exhausted by being in this phase of our life and it feeling like I'm just so tired. I'm just so tired of being in this. How she responded to me was, no, oh, but like, look at me. I have all these kids now. Like, you're going to be okay. It was seriously like she sat with me in it and just like felt that emotion.
Oh, I haven't had one of those for a while.
I know.
Good for you.
And so it just sucks because it's one of those things where, as beautiful as that conversation is, it's like I feel so grateful that I have these warriors behind me that I feel like I can really safely discuss certain things with. It makes me sad that the people that can't meet me there emotionally, I feel like I'm so sad that that relationship kind of suffers in a way. And I hate that disconnect. But I guess right now what I find really helpful in my journey is being able to talk to the ones who have been through something like this. And I just feel like I'm safer with them. Like my heart feels like it can handle divulging more because I'm receiving the same in return.
It does take, it does take, I think, after doing this podcast and like finally finding the feelings and the words to be able to talk about some of this stuff, I think it does take a special person to be able to understand what we've been through, though.
Yeah.
Right? To not be able to make those comments of like, oh, you have time, or oh, there's a plan. Like, I think there's a lot of, it takes a special person to be able to, as we talked about, I think in the last episode, put yourself in our shoes.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of people just want to say their opinions, you know, in this kind of world today. Like a lot of people just want to say their opinions to then they can be out there and be heard. But when it comes down to like this is stuff that we've dedicated the last 3.5 years to.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's stuff that we're like, we've talked about, like many nights where we're crying, many nights where we've had those conversations where it just, I hate it. I hate thinking about it, but
it's when life feels like serious.
Yeah. And I think when people are actually able, when they haven't been down this road, I think it actually, like, it kind of like, it melts my heart thinking about it, just because it's like, wow, they're actually taking the time to think about what we've been through, you know, not just be like, oh, well, that sucks. Because you hear a lot of that.
Well, and I didn't want to like, and I want to like make a point too in this very moment, that there have been a great amount of people who, and this goes back to our support episode, but there has been a great amount of people who haven't walked this walk. And I think that there is a lot to say with the ones that haven't walked it, the ones who have really tried to put our glasses on and see through our lens. And so I didn't want to discredit the ones that haven't. Like, I don't want anyone listening to this part of the episode being like, like, what do you mean? Like, I've really tried to like meet with you and be there for you, even though I have no clue. Like, I'm not trying to discredit that at all. I think another kind of negative light that has been shed on this topic of time for myself has been, I have caught myself saying, and I probably will still say it because I'm still in my healing era. But
that healing
era of my life.
That's gonna be a hashtag.
Literally. Is that time? I have felt time has been a thief and has stolen so much from me and from my soul and from my husband and our relationship and good things in my life that I have had to when, and it's like, wham, wham, I can see it on the other side of like, well, we chose that, we didn't just give up. Like, it's our choice that we decided to keep going forward and pressing go on trying to have a child. But I can't get myself to get past how much time has been a thief in my life. And again, there's so much truth to that. And if you're sitting in, or if you're listening or watching this and you're going like, gosh, like I've been going through this for X amount of time. And, I just want to stop you right there. Like, I get it. There was really important things in our lives that we chose to miss out on, or we had no choice but to miss out on. When you devote your life to your fertility journey, there is things that are taken from you in turn. And it's that. And so if you're like feeling that emotion, please know that that's normal.
If your inner peace is freaking messed with, we got you. We understand.
Yeah.
I feel like, and there's always that it's this time topic too, where if we do lose our mind, it's about this one, right? Yeah. It's about like if anything that we've talked about and someone says something, I feel like we'll just get in the car and be like, well, it's steam coming out of our ears. Like it's the most frustrating one.
As much as this sounds so mean and very bratty of me, it's like, oh, do you want to live the last 4 years of my life? Do you want me to show you? Do you like come into my body and experience the last almost 4 years of my life? I promise you'll be feeling the same that we feel. Like, I promise you it's worse than what we can even say in all sorts of ways. Like, at the end of the day, there is things that will never be discussed. There will be, and it's like, that's crazy because I feel like we are trying to be so authentic and truthful and real in this podcast, but there's some things that are out of protection for us and the people in our lives, and also just like things that you just don't talk about outside of your mind, like individually. Like, and that's some things don't make it outside in verbal form.
And that's just 4 years. I mean, I've talked to people who are like 6 years and 7 or 10, and 10. And like, I think I've talked to one with 12 years. It's like, I couldn't imagine. And don't like, whenever you mention time, I bet to those people who are going through it for 12 years.
I'm sure they literally.
Bring your hot hat because it's about to get wild.
Yeah. This topic just is so cruel. And it's hard, and I get it. But this is definitely more of a ranting episode where, gosh, if you just need to sit with someone who is like, oh yes, like I feel that, or gosh, yeah, like it's this one today.
It is.
Because I am just so, that trigger light is just so bad right now with this whole topic of time. And I just don't feel that it's right for anyone to make me feel like my time is less than, and to just wave off the past 4 years of my life, because those are pivotal years of my life that I shouldn't have had to be dealing with this, that we shouldn't have had to deal with the treacherous walk that we've walked through, and losing so much more than we've gained. We have lost so much more than we've gained. And that is so wrong, and it's so unfair. And that's a part of this whole journey that is hard for people to understand or get you. It's like there's no get out of jail card for this journey. That's a big part of time too, because it's time that you have to take to recover financially. It's time that you have to develop. Like, time also is with you in the sense that you need time to collect your thoughts, collect your when you have to reevaluate your life. Like, we are still reevaluating constantly of, if we go this route, this is what happens. If we go that route, this is what's potentially at the end of the tunnel. Like, you have to also responsibly plan for certain things. I guess to kind of trickle into the time topic, that's like, time can be really good. There's been things where time really needed to happen in between certain things, if that's from loss to loss, or transfer to transfer, or treatment to treatment, or just like the time that we've spent doing no treatments, and the time that we've had to, again, reevaluate what we want in our life, because it throws so many curves.
So since we're on this topic of time, I want to bring up an instant that we had, or kind of a moment, not a good moment that we had, but some situation that we dealt with regarding this. And one way that just frustrates me, and I'm kind of curious how you'll run with this, is versus being told that the right way is by the natural way of conceiving.
Okay, so Sassmaster 3000 wants to come out again, I see. Okay.
I hope I framed that question right.
You did.
Okay.
When you look at Tyler and I as a case file in a clinic, you will see time periods of breaks, time periods of trying to naturally conceive, time where we were doing medicated cycles, time where we were doing certain fertility treatments, and then IVF. And within all of our case file, there is a ignorance to conceiving naturally and how that affects your timeline. And I get very protective of the people who have, like myself, dove into treatment past natural conception, because I think whether you are faith-based or not faith-based in your journey or in your life, there is a point where, as a human being, you will try everything to grow your family. And there has been things along the way that we have felt that the Lord had allowed us to continue to seek treatment. And that looked very clear in that part of our journey. Another hurtful thing that has occurred many times in our lives is being, the controversial topic of treatment versus conceiving naturally. That time really wraps itself around both. And who are you, or who is anyone but, for my belief, the Lord himself, to tell me or to tell us how long is the appropriate time to try to conceive until you know that something's wrong and that you might have to look into other methods. It's no one's place. If you were confused, it's no one's place to tell you. No one. If only it were that simple for us, right? If only it were that simple for me to say, let's go have sex. I'm ovulating. Let's have a baby. What a privilege that would be.
It's very ignorant. And we've heard it multiple times, like you said. And it's very ignorant. And it's something that you're not even trying to understand. Or you don't even, hey, we've offered you the glasses. We'll offer you the glasses. Ask me any question you want. I will paint a picture.
Yep.
And for you to just be like, nah, you need to do it this way, is very, 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 very ignorant to say.
And I think on almost like a flip side, or like a note to put into this is also like, when you get further into this journey, you actually start changing your lifestyle to mimic a more healthy, holistic approach. So when you're trying to naturally conceive, cycle syncing, seed cycling, changing certain things in your life, non-toxic living, when you start putting all of these things together and for it to still not work, sure, that could be something that in our faith journey, there's something in there that there's meaning to this. And we definitely have to believe that. Obviously, the intention is that you conceive naturally. Period.
My last thing I want to say to that is, like, obviously that was our goal.
There's been different parts of this journey where we've wanted to speed up time and slow down time. And I think something that's so important when you talk about this is, for example, when I sit here today, I would literally die to go back and slow down time in the moments that I was actually pregnant. And it's such a sad thing because I know the ending of if I wanted to relive certain pregnancies that I got to experience the physical changes and mental changes and like the things that happen when you are pregnant. I would say if I go back to when we were pregnant the longest, which was our topic, I would die to slow that time down.
I would even die to
Like,
go back to IVF. Like those moments right before
yeah,
leading up to doing it. That was some of like that
the
was really
coolest.
yeah, that was some of the really good moments that we
I
had
would
together.
relive that too. It just, it's so sad. I get really sad when I think about wishing to slow down time in certain periods, even knowing that the ending is really sad. And I think that that's also maybe something that is just part of this journey. I just wish I could go back. And I think the IVF is a really good thing to bring up because there is parts where, not that it maybe would have changed the outcome, but there was things that I do miss. There was traditions that we had started. There was
The
going to the coffee shop in the morning, and
I think like the hope was
yeah,
the biggest one for me. You're like,
yeah,
well, it's worked for a lot of people, so it's got to work for us, you know?
yeah. Well, and I think going into kind of our last part here, how we've tried to survive these 4 years, the things that we've done. I don't think that I'm confident that we haven't done it all right, but it's like as much as I don't want to be living in this terrible season of our lives, I do think that in order for us to continue to, like, the fact that we've been able to still somewhat stay afloat in enjoying life as much as we can, I- I'm I don't want to say I'm happy for that, but I think that that's something that has helped survive this.
Yeah, and even in like the moments that we've had that are good, like there's no right or wrong way of moments that are good. Like we've stated it in a lot of our episodes that if you're grieving or if you're going through something or if you just have a freaking bad day, like have it.
Yeah.
You're fine.
What seems to be what works for us is busyness. And though that does lead to other issues on like burnout or, feud in a way, um, where we're so busy that no one hears from us, or we're not keeping in touch with the people that we should be. I will say that busyness has kind of been what has allowed us to continue to survive through this, and our schedules being just busy all the time. For us, the more slowness that occurs, the more we
Think about it.
like the more that we think about what we don't have and what we've lost. I'm not saying that that's what you should do, but for us, I think the reason why we're still here and still, thriving as one could, given how brutal this has been, is our busyness. Some people do better with, being in solitude, and some do better with being around people. We've experienced both sides of that, but I fear more of my thoughts, or I fear us more when we have too much downtime.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just right now, and that's just kind of where we're at. So that sometimes means that other things fall apart, whether that's friendships, relationships, family time. There's, again, there's so many consequences that you risk in this journey. And I wish that there was a way that we could fix it all for all of us. But that's why we're here, to at least try to make it feel a little bit more bearable.
Trying.
Yeah. It's trial and error. This journey is trial and error, and a lot of error happens, but you just have to hope that the people that have stuck around are going to continue to stick around.
Wanted to do something a little different. We wanted to ask a question for you guys.
How have you been surviving this? What has allowed you to continue to wake up every day and go to sleep every night and do it all over again? Whether you're with us in it or you're listening as a support, it all matters and it all means the world to us.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Deuces.